Welcome to the deep dive. We are diving into a true legend of cinema today. The original Star Wars movie that eventually became Episode 4, A New Hope. It still just blows my mind that one film sparked this huge, enduring cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're looking at some really interesting stuff. You've given us a review from back when the movie came out to get that initial reaction, the crazy amount of detail on IMDb, and then just a ton of user reviews that show how the film has hit different generations.
Exactly. It seems like you were really curious about how this cultural phenomenon began based on all this. So our goal today is to kind of unearth the coolest stuff about how it was made, how people first felt about it back in '77, and why we're all still so captivated by it, decades later. And we'll use all these different perspectives from the material you gave us to do that. So should we just jump right in?
I think a great place to start is with that initial viewing experience. That review you shared really brings you back to that time. Like the writer keeps saying, whoa, with every new visual and concept, which really makes you realize how groundbreaking it all felt back then. What do you think was so mind-blowing about it? Was it just that no one had ever seen alien worlds brought to life like that before?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think the visuals were a big part of it. I mean, audiences just hadn't seen sci-fi on that scale before Star Wars, with the believable alien landscapes. And the reviewer also pointed out something that sounds super simple, but is actually kind of genius, the names of the characters. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, they just fit.
They really do. And it's crazy to think how those names, even though they seem so simple, might have tapped into some of those classic heroic archetypes. It's like they were familiar and totally new at the same time, which really grabbed people's attention, I think. And then when you look at how successful the movie became, wow, nobody expected that. One of the users remembers waiting months to get their hands on those action figures, which says a lot about how much bigger than anyone expected it was.
I know, right? And then there's that IMDb trivia about George Lucas going on vacation to Hawaii with Steven Spielberg during the premiere because he was so sure it was going to flop. Like, it's crazy to think about the guy who created Star Wars being completely MIA when it first hit theaters.
Totally. It really just shows you how unpredictable movie making can be. And that same trip, as IMDb tells us, is where they came up with the idea for Raiders of the Lost Ark. So even a flop, at least a perceived one, can lead to something amazing.
Yeah, that's some seriously creative vacation brainstorming. And to really highlight how deeply people connect to this film, the original review mentions how the writer's son, who's actually born the same year Star Wars came out, has seen the film countless times and practically knows the whole script by heart. That really shows how much it gets rewatched and how much it's become a part of people's lives across different generations.
Absolutely. From those initial reactions of pure awe to becoming something people connect with over generations, Star Wars definitely had a huge impact. And that story about the reviewer's son, that really drives home the power of a good story. Okay, so for anyone out there who isn't super familiar with this galaxy far, far away, let's give them a quick rundown of the plot and introduce them to some of these iconic characters. What do you say?
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the story takes place under the rule of this oppressive galactic empire, and their latest terrifying weapon is the Death Star, which can blow up entire planets. But the Rebel Alliance, these brave rebels fighting the Empire, steal the Death Star's plans in a daring move. Princess Leia Organa, the incredible Carrie Fisher, is a senator and a key rebel leader. She gets hold of these plans, but she's about to get captured, so she hides them inside R2-D2, an astromech droid played by Kenny Baker.
Right. And that's where the adventure begins. R2-D2 and his kind of uptight protocol droid buddy C-3PO, brought to life by Anthony Daniels, escape Leia's ship and crash land on the desert planet of Tatooine. Meanwhile, Leia is captured by the super menacing Darth Vader, played by David Prowse, but with that legendary voice by James Earl Jones, and the ruthless Grand Moff Tarkin, who Peter Cushing plays with this icy authority.
Yeah, it's on Tatooine that a young farm boy named Luke Skywalker, that's Mark Hamill, finds the droids. Luke is dreaming of a life bigger than his everyday existence with his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru on this desert planet. So Luke's messing around with R2-D2 and comes across Princess Leia's message, which is this desperate plea for help meant for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now that name rings a bell for Luke. Obi-Wan, played with such amazing warmth and wisdom by the late, great Alec Guinness, is hiding out on the same planet. After some tragic stuff happens, like his aunt and uncle being killed by stormtroopers, Luke decides to join Obi-Wan. And it's Obi-Wan who tells Luke the truth about his father, that he was a Jedi Knight who was betrayed and supposedly killed by Darth Vader, who gave in to the dark side of the Force. Luke and Obi-Wan need to get off Tatooine to help Leia and deliver the plans, and that leads them to the oh-so-charming smuggler Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford in a role that made him a star, and his loyal Wookiee co-pilot Chewbacca, who was played by Peter Mayhew. They end up chartering Han's ship, the Millennium Falcon, which is basically just as iconic as Han Solo himself at this point. The plan is to go to Alderaan, Leia's home planet, but when they arrive, it's just horrifying. The Death Star has blown the entire planet to bits as a show of force and to try and scare Leia into telling them where the Rebel base is. And then right after that, the Millennium Falcon gets caught in a tractor beam and pulled into the Death Star.
And this is where things really start to get intense. Obi-Wan bravely decides to disable the tractor beam so they can escape, while Han and Luke find out that Leia is being held prisoner. So they pull off this really risky rescue, with Han being his usual cocky self and a lot of close calls. And as they're escaping, they run into Darth Vader, who was once Obi-Wan's student, and it leads to this epic, tragic duel. Obi-Wan sacrifices himself, becoming one with the Force to let the others get away.
It's a huge loss, losing Obi-Wan, but they manage to get off the Death Star. And crucially, that tractor beam is no longer a problem. The film builds up to this incredible edge-of-your-seat climax where the rebels attack the Death Star with everything they've got. And in all the chaos, Luke, with the help of Obi-Wan's voice guiding him from beyond, uses the Force and his piloting skills to fire torpedoes right into the Death Star's weak spot, which blows the whole thing sky high. It's a major win for the Rebel Alliance and the perfect setup for the rest of the saga. Classic hero's journey stuff. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about how the movie was received by critics and audiences and what made it so appealing for so long. And for that, let's look back at those user reviews and that review from back in the day.
From the get-go, the reception was crazy positive. One of the users wondered if it was the perfect casting, the incredible music by John Williams, George Lucas's imagination, just pure filmmaking brilliance, or maybe some crazy luck that made the film such a hit. It seems like it was all of those things coming together perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, everyone praises the cast. It's remarkable. The way Harrison Ford turned Han Solo into this roguish, lovable anti-hero was just genius. Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan, he brought so much weight and a hint of fun to the role. And Carrie Fisher as Leia, she just blew apart that whole helpless princess stereotype. She's strong, independent, and super smart. And even Mark Hamill, he really captured Luke's transformation from naive farm boy to, a budding hero. What do you think made these performances so memorable?
I think these actors really became their characters, which gave them a human quality that made them relatable, even in this wild, fantastical world. Ford gave Solo this cynical charm, Guinness gave Obi-Wan this quiet wisdom, and Fisher made Leia totally defiant. They weren't just acting, they were the characters in the eyes of the audience. And we can't forget Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, bringing so much to a character who's mostly hidden under fur, and Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, such an iconic performance. Plus, as one of the users pointed out, James Earl Jones's voice as Darth Vader, that's just pure genius. He made a villain who's scary but also strangely magnetic.
Oh, totally agree. And it's almost impossible to talk about Star Wars without hearing John Williams' score in your head. The review we have here specifically pointed out it's a key part of why the film was so impactful, and so many users agree, calling it inspiring, amazing, and just one of the best, most recognizable film scores ever. It just elevates every single scene. Why do you think this music has resonated with people for so long?
Well, I think Williams was able to connect with something very primal and universal in his music. The soaring themes, the dramatic fanfares, it all evokes this sense of adventure and timeless heroism. It doesn't just play in the background, it strengthens the emotional impact of what you're watching. You can't separate the Star Wars experience from the music. And it's funny because, as we said before, even George Lucas wasn't sure if the movie would be a success. So the fact that it blew up like it did says a lot about how it just clicked with audiences. One of the users even shared some really insightful thoughts about the symbolism in the movie, seeing the Force as psychic power, maybe even universal hope, and the Empire as having similarities to Nazis, and the rebellion as a kind of NATO force.
That adds a whole other level to it, connecting it to big historical and philosophical ideas. And we have to talk about those special effects. For 1977, they were groundbreaking. Lucas, setting up industrial light and magic, ILM, was essential for bringing his ambitious vision to life, and it changed how movies were made. They totally pushed the boundaries of what special effects could do.
Definitely. And the Films Awards are a testament to how amazing it is technically, and just as a work of art in general. It won 6 Oscars, including Best Art Direction, Costume Design, Visual Effects, Film Editing, Original Score for John Williams, and Best Sound, along with a bunch of BAFTAs and Golden Globes. It really got recognized by the whole industry.
And its spot in film history is set in stone because it's on so many of the American Film Institute's 100 years, lists greatest American films, best scores, most iconic quotes like "May the Force be with you," Darth Vader as a top movie villain, most thrilling films, best family films, and best cheers moments. I mean, it's really ingrained in our culture.
Oh, absolutely. And the user reviews you shared are full of personal stories about how much the film impacted people's lives. So many people talk about their first time seeing it as this almost life-changing moment that sparked a lifelong love for movies, and especially for science fiction. One person even said they saw it in theaters 36 times during its original run. Can you imagine? What do you think explains why people wanted to see it again and again like that?
I think it just grabbed people. It wasn't just a movie, it was an experience. It was like escaping to another world. And some people said that Star Wars made science fiction mainstream. They said it was cool because it looked so amazing and had so much heart. It wasn't just for a small group of fans anymore. Even the fact that they filmed on location, even in places that weren't super exotic, made it feel more real, which is kind of cool when you're dealing with a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, it definitely had a big impact on filmmaking. It didn't just make science fiction a major genre, it paved the way for Star Wars to become this huge franchise with all the merchandise and everything. And one user pointed out all the different places Lucas got his inspiration from, like Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, the whole Vietnam War situation, the imagery of Buddhist monks, World War II airplane footage, the Japanese sword fighting style called kendo, the films of Akira Kurosawa and Fritz Lang, and even classic westerns from John Ford. It's just a really cool mix of influences.
Yeah, he took all these different things and made something totally new. But it's important to remember that not everyone was totally blown away, which is clear from what you gave us.
Right, exactly. Even the most popular things in the world aren't loved by everyone. Some critics said the story was too simple, that it was more for kids, or that it was overrated compared to more grown-up sci-fi. One review even said that Star Wars actually made sci-fi movies worse as a whole, while another one said the special effects, the acting, and even the dialogue were bad. It just goes to show that everyone's got their own taste.
Oh, for sure. And then there's the whole debate about those special edition changes that George Lucas made in 1997. One user wasn't happy about them, especially the Han and Greedo scene, and said they preferred the original. It just shows how much people connect to the version they saw first.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of longtime fans have strong feelings about. Changing even small things in a movie that people love can cause a huge reaction. And going back to the original release, IMDb has this interesting bit of trivia. The film didn't have any opening credits, which was kind of strange for a big movie back in 1977.
Right. And as we mentioned before, George Lucas missed the premiere entirely because he was on that fateful vacation where he got the idea for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, what are the chances? Oh, and there's that classic blooper on IMDb about the stormtrooper who bangs his head on a door in the Death Star control room. It's become a fan favorite moment. They even added a sound effect to it in later versions. It's those little things, even the mistakes,
Yeah.
that can make a movie more fun and memorable.
Totally. And who could forget Han Solo on the Death Star intercom pretending to be an officer? His lines get funnier and funnier as he gets more nervous. It's such great comic relief when things are super tense.
Oh yeah, it really breaks the tension at just the right moment. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Star Wars, A New Hope, what are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you after looking at all the awesome stuff you share with us, the origins, the initial reception, the legacy, all of it?
Well, I think it's crystal clear that Star Wars, A New Hope, wasn't just another movie. It was a cultural earthquake that brought sci-fi back to life and left a giant footprint on pop culture around the world. The way it mixes adventure, mythology, unforgettable characters, and groundbreaking special effects. It just captured everyone's imagination in a way that very few films ever have. It was a massive hit, even though people weren't sure how it would be received at first, and new generations keep loving it, even with all the debates about the changes Lucas made later.
Exactly. I hope this deep dive has given you, the listener, a deeper understanding of this iconic film, where it came from, why it matters, and all the cool behind-the-scenes stuff. We've tried to bring those different perspectives from all the material you gave us to life.
And all of this brings up a really cool question for you to think about. Considering how huge and influential Star Wars has been, what do you think is the biggest reason for its success and its ability to still connect with people today? Is it the characters and their journeys that everyone can relate to? Is it the classic battle between good and evil? Is it those mind-blowing special effects that took us to another galaxy? Or is it John Williams' music that's just so powerful and instantly recognizable? It's definitely worth pondering as you think about this galaxy far, far away.